Michael Madsen's a good name for a cat.
It really
If I get another cat, I'm going to name it Michael Madsen.
Right now is the time for me to leave everything I know behind.
Right away, Marianne flew in from Atlanta on a red-eye midnight flight. She held Wanda's hand, and they worked out a plan. And it didn't take them long to decide that Earl had to die. Goodbye, Earl. That was
What?
Goodbye, Earl, by the band formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, now just the Chicks, after they dared to criticize George W. Bush's wars and got a zillion death threats from Republican nutjobs. Guys, do you remember the Dixie Chicks?
I do. I didn't like them then.
AKA the Chicks? I didn't either.
Yeah, I didn't like them when they were Dixie Chicks. Don't
Until they
care
got
for,
all the
but
death
whatever.
threats.
That's fine.
And then I was like, oh, they got some guts. All right.
I
And
was
they stood up to it. They didn't cave.
always more of a Pussy Riot guy.
I've heard that about you.
Here. Yeah. It's one thing to get death threats. It's another to actually be thrown in gulag. Like,
Yeah,
that's-
right.
Such a
That's
fucking great band name, though.
I was more of a corrosion of conformity guy. COC, bro. Come on. So yeah.
Why'd you choose that song?
The hell are we? Yeah. Why are we choosing this song? Why are we talking about an early 2000s song about spousal revenge? Because we're here today to talk about the movie Thelma and Louise, Ridley Scott's take on Kelly Curry's script that won the Best Screenplay Oscar in 1991.
Again with the screenplays.
Again with the screenplays, and the movie was nominated for 1 million awards and won 0 of them except for screenplay, which goes along with the women and black people theory, where if you are a black filmmaker and you make an amazing movie, you'll get the screenwriter award. And if you're a female who writes a great movie,
I feel like
you'll get the screenwriter award.
Yeah, I feel like we've done at least 3 or 4 episodes now where that was the case. Where
Spike
it was like,
Lee, yeah, Spike Lee, American Fiction. Yeah,
what'd they get?
They
Almost
got
nothing.
Best Screenwriter, yeah, yeah, exactly, or
Didn't-
best adapted screenplay. So this one won that and nothing else because it was up against Silence of the Lambs, which won every goddamned award in the slate that year.
That's funny that your theory, because then I was like, the first thing that popped in my mind was Juno from an 07. It was like Diablo Cody. I was like,
Diablo
did
Cody.
that win Best Screenplay? And I was like, I look at 2008 winner, Best Writing, Original Screenplay.
There you go, and nothing else.
Nothing else.
You can suck it on everything else. So this movie has a pretty amazing cast. It stars Susan Sarandon as Louise, a small town server at a restaurant in their home state of Arkansas. Gina Davis is Thelma, a what they used to call the housewife, who is just kind of trapped in the home. The husband does all the working. She's supposed to do all the working in the home.
I believe it's called a trad wife now.
A trad wife. She's the original trad wife.
Before it was cool.
Trapped in a prison created by her husband. Michael Madsen is Jimmy, Thelma's so musician boyfriend, who seems good sometimes, but also really bad sometimes. Harvey Keitel is a state trooper who is both male and nice, which is quite a coup in this movie. Christopher McDonald is Thelma's asshole husband. Daryl. And Stephen Tobolowsky, a.k.a. Ned Ryerson from Groundhog Day, as a cop. Like a Fed, I think. It is also the movie that basically introduced the world to the talents of Mr. Brad Pitt. So this was my pick. I've seen this one a few times over the years, and I don't know who else has seen this before. Has anyone of the two of you seen this before? Brian, Joshua?
Never saw it.
Negative.
Never saw it. Negative Ghost Rider. Okay.
Did not see it. I don't know why. Certainly aware of it. That
Pretty famous movie,
extremely.
right? Like pretty famous movie.
I feel like I knew the plot and the ending before I even saw
I
it.
was just going to say the same thing. I
Through
was
osmosis,
like, once you kind of know the ending and I kind of figured what it's about, I was like, well, I'll see it someday. And never saw it.
It's like one of those, a news aggregator site or whatever, and they have just a bunch of headlines. Like the headline is the story. You don't even have to click on it. It's like, Iran says women can't drive. And you're like, Okay, that's
There's probably no backstory to that.
probably don't really need to know any more details other than a repressive regime has become more repressive.
Probably because they saw Thelma and Louise and were like,
They
we
really
gotta
fear-
protect
they
them from
fear
themselves.
Women in convertibles, especially convertibles. You cannot drive convertibles. We'll talk about a hardtop car. Maybe we'll let you drive those. So yeah, despite this being the title is the story movie, I feel like it is definitely more interesting than that when you watch it. And it is kind of a movie that caused a kind of a seismic, at least cultural, bunch of waves after it came out. It's one of those movies, where it comes out and it taps into the anger of a whole set of people that hasn't been given voice to very often or very well. And it allowed that voice to have a big stage. Ridley Scott directed it, and, it probably should have been directed by a woman. But it was directed by a famous guy so that people might actually see the fucking thing.
Sir Ridley Scott.
Sir Ridley Scott, exactly. And there weren't that many women directors in Hollywood back then because they weren't given opportunities. And the ones that were given opportunities were very seldom showed projects. They had to write their own sometimes. So yeah, this is one where Kelly Currie, who wrote this, was going to have it be a small budget movie. She was going to direct it herself. She wanted Holly Hunter and Frances McDormand to be Thelma and Louise, and that was kind of rolling along. And then someone gave this to Ridley Scott, and he was like, I like this a great deal. I want to produce it, but I need a director. I won't direct it. And he looked for a bunch of directors.
He looked for 5
all of
seconds.
whom-
Okay, I'll direct it.
No, he looked for, he did. He scoured for directors. A lot of them said yes and then no. I think Richard Donner, who did Lethal Weapon, said yes.
He's like, no
and then
thanks.
dropped it. For some reason, dropped it. Yeah.
Oh.
And so, and then at a certain point, someone was like, "Hey, Ridley Scott, why don't you direct it?" And
Ask
finally
sort of
was
the
like,
year. You know who
"Well, all right."
would be
I
great
know.
to direct this thing you're already producing?
You know who'd be great to direct a movie about like a small American town, and it's written by a woman? A British man. A perfect idea. But he's like, "Well, I suppose I'll do it."
Gee, she's the man, you say. All right.
Yeah, and he was apparently one of the things that he said to Kelly Currie to, allow her to be okay with him directing it, other than "I'm really famous," was, I did Alien and that starred a woman.
Yeah.
She was like, oh yeah.
True.
I've
You're
seen
the
a woman
alien
before.
guy.
He's like,
seen a woman.
you might not know this, but the alien itself, the xenomorph, was a woman. You're like, oh, all right.
I've mated with several women myself.
That's not feminist. I didn't know it
Enjoy their
was
form. I enjoy their form a great
Believe it
deal.
or not, I've fornicated before.
Exactly.
I've
So,
seen
but
them.
yeah, he ended up through hook and crook or whatever as directing this thing, and it got, it was made for $15 million. It made $46 million, which for this type of movie in 1991 was actually considered quite a hit. And it created all kinds of news stories, magazine stories, TV stories about, female rage and women feeling repressed and put down and stopped at every turn. It's succeeding, and just it really tapped into this vein of righteous anger from a lot of women. I feel like it was kind of a really early precursor to the Me Too movement, where this thing hits like a bomb and all these people just start saying, yeah, me too, like me too, me too, me too. And everyone's like, where did this come from? Like, and it's like,
we were caught completely off guard.
Yeah, it came
We had
from
no
people
idea
being
this shit was going on.
repressed and stomped on for, millennia. Does anyone care to say the plot?
All right, so which one's Thelma?
Louise Sawyer is Susan Sarandon. She's
Okay,
she's
which
the
one's
server
Thelma?
at the restaurant. Yeah,
Right, Cheetah Davis is Thelma.
Thelma's the
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does this take place in Arkansas, I believe.
Arkansas.
The
It took me a
beautiful
little while to figure that out. I was like, where the hell is this taking place?
because it is in
California.
Arkansas. It's shot in California and Utah.
it's all over.
Again,
I was like, the
Ridley
beautiful
Scott.
rolling mountains of Arkansas.
Ridley Scott's like, anywhere in America will do. Shot it in Delaware.
Yeah.
No one's been to Arkansas anyway.
I know. Who goes there?
So you're in the desert and
In
it's
the
raining.
desert.
A lot.
It's raining a lot.
Fucking lot.
Fucking desert. In Arkansas, it does rain
Continue.
a lot, but
Did it rain in the last scene? Yes, we'll do it in this one.
Do it again.
Will it be pouring?
For no reason.
No, I have thoughts. I have thoughts about
yeah,
the rain.
me
I have
too.
thoughts about the rain.
Brad Pitt
okay,
have his
sorry.
shirt on?
Yeah.
The plot is that Thelma is like married right out of high school, first guy she's ever been with, middle of nowhere, Arkansas. She is very unhappy, justifiably. Her husband is a dipshit, Scooter McGavin, or Shooter McGavin before he appeared in Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen him in any other movie other
I know. He's always an asshole, though. I've seen
it.
him in a couple movies, but yeah.
And then Louise is like a street smart waitress. She's seen some shit a little older than Thelma. They're besties and they're planning to get out of town for the weekend. But Thelma has not asked her hubby if she's allowed to go. So she tiptoes around it, but then just decides, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to tell him. So she hops in the car with Louise to go ostensibly on a fishing trip up Missouri, probably. I don't know.
In a net. I think it's like probably up by the Ozarks, like the corner of the estate. Yeah.
So, but they don't make it there because they decide, you know, there's a vacation. They're going to have some fun. A little detour. It's going to be after dark anyway. So
the harm.
Let's pull over. Yeah, we're going to stop at this roadside inn, this roadhouse. Patrick Swayze is not at it though.
He should have been.
And they're going to do shots. I mean, it's a road trip movie. So let's do a bunch of fucking shots. Yeah. And then obviously there's a dude, some redneck guy who takes a liking to Thelma. Harlan, perfect name. Yeah, perfect name for this dude who he thinks that he is like the world revolves around him. And that there's some flirting going on. They start dancing and he takes the flirting for, this is an open invitation to have his way with her. So he attempts to rape her. And at that point, Thelma or Louise comes running out, saves the day. And there's some shouting and threatening and Thelma and Louise are about to get away. And then the guy pops his mouth off a little bit more. Louise caps him. And then shit gets real, and then they speed off in the car and try and figure out what the hell are we going to do. And so it becomes a road trip movie where they're now pivoting from just having fun to shit. Our lives are kind of in danger. We could go to the cops, but we live in the kind of world where it doesn't matter what they say; they're going to take that dude's side. Yeah. So Harvey Keitel, like the police, start investigating. He ostensibly has a heart of gold, but also kind of creepy because he just kind of breaks into her house, into Louise's house to investigate. I don't think he had a warrant for that. So even the good guy is still a little shitty.
So state troopers can do anything.
Apparently.
You're allowed to do whatever you want.
But he starts to put together a picture in his head about who are, these people who may or may not have done it at this point. They don't know. He's putting together the clues. It's like Batman. But he starts to feel like he understands them. They proceed down the road. They meet Brad Pitt, who's sexy and got a cowboy hat on. He's also kind of a dipshit and is on the lam.
An accent.
He's like robbing grocery stores and stuff. So then the movie just sort of continues to have them get deeper and deeper into the shit as they break more and more laws. And it just progresses into the ending, which is world famous, where they say fuck it, we're not long for this world, it's not gonna be fair to us, so into the history books we roll.
Let's keep going
back.
See, I liked you shared with us the alternate ending that which it was pretty much the same ending except for it had oh shit, who was doing the song? It was BB King.
Yeah, BB King.
It was a BB King song playing over it where he's just like talking the whole time.
He's like but it was like I forget what song it was like.
Story.
But it was like too on the nose, it was like, you gotta drive that car over a cliff. You're like, maybe not though, because we're watching the car go over the cliff.
I can use my imagination.
I know. Yep, we see him. We see him going over the cliff.
And then there was like in the original ending, it shoots over the edge of the cliff. It zooms it, like you see, okay, the dummy, it's in the car with the full head of hair,
like
and then it freezes.
Comes off or something.
Yeah,
like some shit flies out.
It fades out and then goes through the cast, which I feel is a pretty good ending. This one though, it had to actually like drift off and then behind a bunch of rocks. You don't see it crash or anything like that, but then there's a little bit more action where the helicopters flying over to like kind of dive down after them. There's a little bit, it goes on. It just sort of goes for a bit.
Harvey Keitel runs after them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like, in some ways it's better and in some ways it's worse. Like in the original one, they drive off the cliff. They're still on the ascent. The car is still going upward when the movie freezes them there. And then it goes to white.
To symbolize that.
Yeah, and it shows like,
legend has it they're still flying to this day.
They're still flying to this very day. But it's less of like, it's more of an empowerment moment than like they died. Like we get that they're going to die. They drove into the fucking Grand Canyon. But it stops it at their ascent. So you're like, this is like the culmination of their freedom, like this is the ultimate freedom of this world.
Going to heaven.
Yeah. I
did not know the Grand Canyon was in Oklahoma either.
It is not. Well, they're supposed to be in Arizona. They've driven quite a ways.
I mean, I don't know if you missed this. They're trying to go to Mexico.
7 or 8 days. Yeah, I know. They have to go around Texas. They go through Oklahoma. They go down. And they say, I believe
that was a funny thing. She was like, how the fuck am I going to get there? Texas? We got to go around Texas?
Yeah, Louise.
Good point, Gina Davis.
For those who haven't seen it, Louise is like, you can't drive through Texas. And they have to pick up money in Oklahoma City from Louise's boyfriend, Jimmy. And then they're supposed to get to the Mexico border. And Louise is like, you can't go through Texas. Thelma's like, how the hell am I supposed to get to the Mexico border without going through Texas? She's like, just find a way.
She's like, the only thing between here and Mexico is Texas.
Yeah, it's a good summary there, Joshua.
It's a fair summary. It's not good, but
I think let's start out with what we like about the movie. What do we like about the movie?
I remember when this came out, and obviously for the ending, and almost it's funny because as I'm watching this, I'm thinking there's so many cultural impacts around this movie, not just the ending, but like you said, the Brad Pitt thing. And I was like, why is he famous from this? I guess just because he's attractive. I was like, okay, his acting wasn't amazing and that kind of thing. But then I said something about, I was trying to pick it apart. And Jen's like basically the guy person. I said the same thing about Harvey Keitel. I'm like, why is he so invested in this whole thing? And like, why is Brad Pitt this? And she's like, I don't think the movie's about the guys. I'm like, oh, all right, that's fair.
Fair point.
Yeah, and I was like, that makes sense.
This is how women have felt about men movies for the ages. They're like, the women are these like pawns and they don't do shit.
No, I like I think like you said, it's a great cast. I like both Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon. I mean, we talked about her a lot in the Bull Durham episode, but I think they're a good pair in this. Like, I read obviously through the wiki, the original was like Michelle Pfeiffer and Jodie Foster, which I can't really, I guess.
Yeah. That would have been good too. They would have been good.
I was going to say, it's hard to say you can't see that because I think when someone does a great job with it, it's like, oh, that's Thelma and Louise, like Gina Davis. And so, but yeah, it's a good road movie. I was like paralleling it a little bit to like Midnight Run. I'm like, God damn it. We're in a bunch of more car races with the cops in the middle of the desert.
Totally.
But I think for the cultural impact, I mean, around it, but I do remember all this stuff going on around like female empowerment and like, is this a feminist movie? Is it not? And all the critics going back and forth about it. Like, the Roger Ebert said it was good. And then everyone's like, well, it's not about feminism. It's more about violence and revenge and all this other kind of thing. So I like the arc they gave Thelma, because she starts out like the kind of the naive housewife thing. And then you've got kind of her rebellious best bud, a little bit. And she's got a backstory, which Joshua touched on a little bit, in Texas and whatever. So you can, she's a little older, a little wiser, that kind of thing. But they kind of give her this nice arc where she's like, like you said, only known Daryl, who's like Uncle Rico before Uncle Rico.
Right. Yeah.
as they progress, they kind of give Gina Davis more leeway. And I think they kind of turn it at the point where she calls Daryl and basically she tells Daryl to go fuck himself. And then there's like this switch where she turns, where she's like, okay, fuck that guy. Like, and then she she has like what she quotes like an awakening basically, and starts like living her life. And she starts living her life a lot, where she starts robbing places. but you know, I think for once they kind of make her, she feels alive and like her own person. And, you know, obviously, you know, she sleeps with the Brad Pitt character, the drifter guy, and, you know, robs this, but she's happy and like living her life and, you know, not being oppressed by Daryl anymore. So I thought that was really cool. And then they kind of back off.
I would say, you know, I'll say this later, but yeah, I would say that I think Louise has a pretty interesting journey as well. I think she does change as the movie goes along. It's just more subtle. A lot of this movie is just finding out that there could be another person out there that's like good for you, you know, and like Thelma and Louise don't have a romantic relationship. That was not intended at all, I think, despite the fact that they have, you know, Louise kiss Thelma before they drive off the cliff.
Was that like a controversy? Because that's kind of
that's supposed to be a friend kiss. Yeah. And Gina, Susan Sarandon said she didn't tell anyone in the crew she was going to do that, but she told, you know, Gina Davis, which is the right way to do it. I hate it when people are like, I didn't tell my scene partner I was going to fucking do something and screw them, you know, because they're going to have a weird reaction.
You need consent.
Well, yeah, you do. But that was supposed to be a non-sexual kiss. It was just like, you know, we two have gone through this thing and I want this moment, you know, before we jump into an abyss together, you know, this moment of connection. And I think their relationship, each of these characters changes because of the other and in ways that are surprising to them. And I think in Louise's case, Susan Sarandon's case, she's had a boyfriend the whole time, and sometimes he's okay and sometimes he's a fuck up, but he really isn't good for her. And once they've thrown all the shackles of society off and they're like, we're just doing this shit, we're going to be outlaws. That's when they're like, hey, you know what? Like, we complement each other really well. And that we could have looked for relationships in our lives. You know, like Louise says this a bunch, you get what you settle for. You know, we didn't, too bad we settled, both of us, in our lives to this moment. And, you know, we could have had it better. And so I think Louise's character changes a lot when Brad Pitt steals their money and flies the coop, and Louise breaks down crying on the motel floor, and Thelma's character changes a lot at that same moment as well. Thelma's like, get up, get the hell up, and like yanks her off the floor, brings her out, and is like, all right, well, I broke Louise. And so now I have to take control because Louise is broken and I broke her and I feel bad about it, but also I can't have her broken because we need this shit to work for us to live. And that's where both of them, I think, change quite a bit. That moment after Brad Pitt robs them, and that's when they start to find their strengths too. They get broken down to this level where all they can do is start building.
I think Susan Sarandon does a fantastic job of just like exuding the exhaustion of being a woman in this society and all the shit she's seen and have to put up with on a daily basis, and then just like really conveys that without really even having to say a word. Like just it's her demeanor, it's everything about her, like she just carries that throughout the entire performance. And I went back and forth between like disliking and liking the relationship between Thelma and Louise, because there was like this, there's conflict there. There's like friction because like Thelma's kind of a fuck up. Like she keeps like messing up
a lot,
like a lot. Yeah. And I was like surprised seeing this, like, oh shit, like Louise, like is kind of shitting on her, and like they're not really getting along. And like the relationship is not really like, they're not on equal terms at all for a while.
They don't know each other that well, right? Like, so Thelma never gets out of the house. Yeah.
And this was like the big, like, you know, they're going away together to have like maybe to get to know each other better. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was surprised by that. And at first, as I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is not like what I thought it was going to be at all. But it really, I think that held it all together. The fact that they grew together and they did sufficiently change throughout the entire movie. It wasn't like they were, longtime friends through thick and thin at the very beginning, and this is just another adventure.
Got this. Yeah. They don't got this. Yeah.
And there was even like a major plot point where they might go their separate ways.
Yeah.
Thelma may end up going back to Shooter McGavin, while Louise goes on to Mexico. Not a plot point I saw coming, and not one, from outside looking in and knowing about this movie but never seeing it. Like, it's not something I would have expected. So I loved that there were lots of surprises in it, despite the fact that I felt like I knew everything about it before.
Yeah. And I feel like Thelma's character, Gina Davis's character, like she says to Brad Pitt in the car, I got together. We got married at 18, and I was with him for 4 years before that. So she was 14 when she started this relationship with fucking Daryl, right? And she never had a fucking life after probably age 14. He took over. She didn't get to do anything. She didn't get to figure out what her deal was as a human being. She got put in a pod and was made to be a monkey in a pod.
Y'all got to get out of your hometowns.
I know, right?
The lesson is.
So it's not surprising that she's such a fuck up for the first like 2/3 of the movie, because it's really like letting a 14-year-old out with an adult. And it's like, I used to read Curious George stories to my kids, and it would be like the man with the yellow hat would take George to the museum, and he'd be like, "Hey George, you sit here and be good while I go on the other side of the fucking museum and talk to some lady I know." And then George fucks up everything. It was like, why did you leave a monkey in a fucking museum? And he's like, oh no, George made mistakes. He's like, yes, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. You're his leader.
You should know better, man of the
yellow. To know better. I know, the man
do better.
With the yellow hat is an asshole. So like, I feel like to an extent, it's kind of, Louise's character is kind of like that until she figures out how to be an adult. About 2/3 of the way through the movie, she's like, oh wait, I have responsibilities here. Like, my friend is broken now, and now I have to step up and do shit, So like, this is a person that never got to be an adult, rapidly, like, Billy Madison, like, cycling through, a bunch of years of childhood to reach adulthood in short order. So like, yeah, it's not surprising she's a fuck up. Of course she's a fuck up. She doesn't know what she's doing. She trusts everybody.
Yeah. When Brad Pitt rips them off. I mean, that's the man in the yellow hat. That's not on Thelma. That's on Louise for leaving the fucking money with Thelma. Why would you do that, Louise?
It'd be one thing if it was like, Jimmy can't know about the money, so I'm going to leave it with you, so he doesn't know about the money and he doesn't know on the run. Jimmy gave her the fucking money. She's like, hey, 14-year-old. Here's my life savings in cash in a fucking envelope. Protect it with your life. And she's like, okay, I'll leave it on the fucking end table. It's like a hello card to anyone who wants to rob us in this shitty motel. Like, yeah, that is a total man with a yellow hat moment. You're like, Louise, you fucked her. You shouldn't have given her the money. And,
I think my favorite scene in the entire movie is when they it's like 3/4. It's nearing the end game, where they get pulled over by the policeman, and he's all super tough with them. Pulls Louise out, puts her in the car, and then Gina Davis, Thelma, shows up with a pistol in his face, and
I'm so
really
sorry,
politely highway robs him.
That's so funny.
The whole interaction, just so
I love that he starts crying right before they put him in the trunk. He's like,
shoot the radio.
I have a wife and children. And like, he's so tough before that and stuff like that. And what I love the most is when I was reading about this guy, Jason Baig, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's in this show, Chicago PD. He plays like this tough lieutenant or something in Chicago PD. Apparently, he was just supposed to get in the trunk and shut up, and like and he improvised the crying thing because he was like, I want to make this guy more real, and I think it'd be more memorable if Like he suddenly becomes a human being, you know, instead of this cop, and starts bursting out crying. And it does. I remembered that moment like forever from this movie. It's a really memorable moment.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of funny because he's such a ramrod dick of a cop, but you're also like, it's also really sad because he's playing this male role that's been given to him that he thinks he needs to do like to the nth degree. And when
he's got to threaten these women on the road,
yeah, he just starts bursting out crying. He's a human being, you know. There's like
the second he loses that power.
Yep. Yeah. So for me,
and then the Rastafarian who rides his bike back.
That's awful. So, yeah, I was like, what the fuck? I forgot all about that dude.
That was very random
and racist and weird. Yeah, this is like,
it would have been better if he just kept going. He just like saw the cop car. I was like,
totally, and been like, no thanks, and not been smoking a blunt. Yeah, like
you don't ride your bike across the fucking desert smoking weed. Who does that?
There are moments in this movie, stylistically, tonally, and stuff like that, where I was like, it would be better if a woman had directed this, and it would be better if an American woman had directed this, because there is some cartoonish shit in here about America, and especially American men, that he just doesn't get right. And I've seen this in his other movies. I saw Romulus or whatever the fuck. Yeah, exactly. And there's like a guy named Tennessee.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and shit. No, he has this like British idea of like the Southern male.
The colonists.
He's like
Yosemite Sam guy. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, an American would have known this is too much, I think.
The British portrayal of like the hayseed bumblefuck rural Americans.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, I mean,
we're allowed to make fun of them. You're not.
But
what I did want to point out, Joshua, you talked about this earlier about the rain. So it's always raining in the desert, but it's mostly raining in Arkansas. And I watched this twice again because I was like, even though I'd seen this before, I watched it twice again because I was like, there were a couple key moments where there was water involved, and I was like, someone went out of their way to put water in this scene, and I don't know fucking why. And the first time I noticed it was when she's like, Thelma's like, you know, oh, let's not just go to the cabin. I want to pull off and have a little fun, you know? And she's like, look, it's going to be dark by the time we get there. And she's like, I just want to have a little fun. And so like they instead of going left, they take a right. And as they take a right, this water car drives by and splashes their car with water. And I was like, why the fuck did they do that? Like,
I thought it was for the roads.
They needed to get a water car to hire one. They needed to hire a car
that
shoots water out of it on
purpose. Happened in real life?
On purpose to nail this car. And they almost get around, but it gets him. And I was like, that's something. That's fucking something. That's a smart director. He's fucking doing something here. And then it was like, why is it always raining in Arkansas? Like, why is it always raining in Arkansas? And I was like, oh, it's like they're moving from, you know, fertility to, it doesn't fucking work. And I was like, I don't know what it is. And Brad Pitt has a hose, and he sprays Thelma. And I was like, and he's like, oh, did I cause that? Did I cause that? I'm sorry. Did I cause that? And I was like, what the fuck is this? Why does he have water? And then the morning after she has sex with Brad Pitt, like Louise is in the diner, and outside someone's like spraying the road down with water. And like, I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then the second time I watched it, I was like, I know what it is. I'm almost 100% sure I know what it is. Right at the beginning of the movie, Louise is working in the diner, and she's on the phone with Thelma, and she walks into the back room, and there's a fish tank, and she pushes her face up to the fish tank and does like fish mouth to the fish in the tank. And I was like, I think this is it. And it really connected later because we go to Harvey Keitel and all the cops in, you know, Thelma's house with her husband. And there's a lamp full of water and fish. Like, it has tropical fish in the fucking lamp in their house, like a 70s lamp or something. And I was like, that's it. That's it. I think that he's doing a thing where like they're trapped like fish in a tank. Like they're they're constrained in this glass box that they can't get out of. And every time they go back to the men in their life, it's pouring rain, and it pours on the cops all the time. And when they are about to go to the mountains but take a right to go into the roadhouse, they get sprayed by the water car, and that's like an omen of like, you know, bad shit to come. And then every time they go back, they show fish or rain or something like that, you know, and it happens again. Brad Pitt squirts her with water. You know, I was like, yeah, that's it. It's like every time they touch the male world, they were like going back to this fish tank thing. And the more they get out in the desert, I was like, the first time I watched it again, I was like, why is it so fucking dusty in the desert? You can film in the desert without causing that much dust. The further away they get from their lives as fish in a tank, the dustier it gets, the drier it gets, and they finally like jump off the edge of the Grand Canyon, like the driest, fucking openest, freest place, you know, in America.
But into the Colorado River.
But it's not there anymore because all those stupid Western cities like drank all the water. But yeah, that's what I think, and I think I'm right.
I would be with you, and I would say that's a smart thing, except for the rain is so fucking fake. Like I expect a director to be able to like the lighting is all wrong. You can tell there is like a fire hose
broad
20 feet right off camera that's just spraying it up in the air to make it look like rain.
Well, that's why you know that he is doing that, in my opinion, because like why would you want it to rain? Filming in rain is a giant pain in the ass.
You gotta wait for it to rain. I get it, but
you have to want that rain to be there. So they made fake rain when it was sunny out. They had that water car spray them. Like, why does Brad Pitt have a fucking hose?
No,
like, why?
All of that's explainable. And all of that's good. It's the making it actually like they all gotta have raincoats on. They'll be running from the car. Oh, it's a really pouring down today. Like, no, it doesn't have to be at all.
I know,
because it looks fake as shit.
That's what I think. But that's what I think it is. And there's no other reason for all this water.
Do you think there's a thematic connection to buying so many little bottles of alcohol and not just regular size bottles?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's interesting too, though. Like, I don't know why that's interesting.
Like, why are they drinking so many little bottles all the time?
I know. I mean, the guy says, so clearly that's a motif, right? Because the guy says to her, like, would you just like an economy size? And he like gives her like a real bottle of liquor. She's like, no, little bottles.
No.
Little bottles.
Put them in the purse.
Put them on the purse. Exactly.
Put them next to the gun. Also, get rid of the fucking gun. Like, that's
the gun.
They need
criminal 101.
The gun. Yeah, they need the gun.
What?
What do you mean get rid of the gun? As the filmmaker or as the
as evidence?
Yeah.
Toss
they're
the
not
gun.
Experienced criminals, clearly.
They're also heading into uncharted territory. They're going to need the gun. Like
the gun is the only thing that connects them to the murder.
I know. Get rid of the only thing they can use to defend themselves against whatever is coming.
They've already committed
I can see it both ways.
And they're trying to get out of town. They're not going to. If they were going back to their lives and pretending to be small town ladies that never did anything, get rid of the gun. If you're trying to hit the road to go to Mexico and live an entirely different life, keep the fucking gun. So
I completely disagree.
If it's first degree murder and they're trying to get away with it, get rid of the gun.
Get rid of the gun.
If it's self-defense and they're expecting some more shit, you keep it for protection.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why is Harvey Keitel's character? I didn't like this. This is one thing I didn't like.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, why is he so invested in this? I mean, realistically, like a Arkansas state trooper who's at a roadhouse, who seems to kind of know those people there, who probably would have known that this guy Harlan was a shithead anyways. I mean, it seems like everybody else does. So he's so bent on finding these. I feel like he would have dropped that, like if you had I don't know. It was just like, and it kept driving me nuts that they just didn't confess in a way to him or explain the scenario. If he's so heart of gold, like wanting to find out what happened, he's like, listen, I can help you fix this. I can bring you back, blah, blah. They could explain the scenario to him, even if they never went back and just kept going to Mexico and just been like, here's what really happened. And tell the cop that. And then
why would they waste their time?
I know, yeah, but Louise doesn't know him. She doesn't know that he is invested in them. He knows that she knows that he's saying the right things on the phone to try to catch them. I mean, that's what I'd think. Before. If I were her, I'd be like, he's just trying to be nice so they can catch me. It's good cop, bad cop. But, you know,
he may actually be a good cop.
And that is a really funny moment when...
Fast and loose with the fucking rules, but whatever.
Yeah, that's a really good moment. I love when he's like, you know, the cops are like, oh, when she calls home, you know, try to be nice, you know, be nice to her, you know, like, talk lovingly to her, you know. And then Ned Ryerson guy is like, yeah, women love that shit. And he's like, yeah, women love that shit. Yeah. And then when she calls home, you know, her asshole husband answers the phone. He's like, Thelma! She hangs up. She's like, he knows.
Like fucking Terminator 2.
And the cops look
Your
right at him.
stepmother's is dead.
I know, exactly. Yeah. Totally.
Wolfie's fine, honey.
Yeah. I know, exactly. Wolfie's fine. It's totally a Wolfie's fine moment.
Yeah, I like that scene too.
Yeah. Harvey Keitel's character, like, we don't know what Harvey Keitel's character's motivation is for believing these women and wanting to help them, but I don't really know that I need to know. Like, I don't always need that explained to me. Like, I don't really need to know why he is sympathetic. I like that he's a sympathetic character. I think for the most part, Callie Curry was writing this and was like, I have to have a sympathetic male character in this, or Hollywood isn't going to make this movie, or, you know, no one's going to see this movie.
But I mean, doesn't Michael Madsen's character? I like how complicated and fucked up his character
is. Complicated for
like
sure.
The second I saw Michael Madsen's in this movie, okay, this dude's gonna be like
a psycho,
awful,
and they tried to cast him as the rapist. They tried to cast him as Harlan.
Okay, that would make sense. Yeah,
hell no, I don't want to fucking play the rapist. They also tried to cast Brad Pitt as the rapist, I think, and he was like, hell no, I don't want to play the rapist. That's why they got a nobody play the rapist, because he just wants to be in a movie.
Yeah, but Michael Madsen, like, I expected him to be awful, but and the second he like punches the wall or knocks shit over, like, here he comes.
Here we go.
But then he proposes to her, and she's like, this is he came all the way out here. You know, you don't trust him because it's Michael Madsen.
Yeah, yeah.
But
plus he's doing like Elvis face and
everything. Yeah, totally the whole
like, time. Crinkly face, you know.
I've seen Kill Bill. I know where this is. But yeah, he surprises you. He does. He takes the rejection and he leaves. Yeah. And you're like, wow, that was an interesting character that Jimmy just went in and out of the movie. Like,
I love how he gives her the ring. He's like, sit down, sit down. I gotta give you something, you know. And she's like, what? You can give it to me here, you know. It's just funny. And he's just like,
you know, I hate flying.
Sideways passes her a fucking wedding ring, an engagement ring. And she's like, why now, Jimmy? And he's like, oh, I mean, you know, like, just thought you wanted. He's just like, so it's what you wanted, right?
Thought you were leaving forever. I was
just gonna
get you back.
Get us a ring, so you stay, right?
Because of romance, you know.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, like, try it on and stuff.
This is what chicks like.
Like, whatever. Yeah. That chick cracked me up. I'm like, that's not gonna work. Yeah. You suck at this.
He's like,
clearly.
He's not the most awful man in the world.
No,
they did portray him as like affably dumb. And like, there's a reason she's like, he's in her life. That's it. He's in her life.
Right. Exactly. And she picked an uncomplicated man, probably because, you know, especially people who have been raped or sexually assaulted, like, they aren't really dying to launch themselves into a relationship afterward. You know, like, men are scary, men are dangerous, you know? So it makes sense that she picks a guy who just comes in and out of her life, you know, like an indoor-outdoor cat. Where you're like, where is he now? I don't know. He's probably out hunting.
Michael Madsen's a good name for a cat.
It really is.
If I get another cat, I'm going to name it Michael Madsen.
Yeah, that was great.
Any glaring, as Greg likes to say, warts in the movie?
Oh yeah, there was a few, yeah, for sure. Daryl is a cartoon character of a guy, her husband, Thelma's husband.
I can't think of a better actor to play that cartoon.
I know, right? He's a little over the top. Although apparently when he slips on the boards going to his car and falls over, that really happened. And he improvised all the shit, and they were like, it's so good, we kept it.
He's like, be out of here by 4.
But yeah, ridiculous. I think Daryl is too cartoonish. Although it's funny. Like, I like when she calls home the first time when the cops aren't there, and he's like, you get your butt back here, or I'm just gonna, I just don't know what. He sits down because like you have nothing. Yeah. So he makes me laugh in this movie, but also I'm like, he's too big. And then the truck driver is insane.
Yeah.
The truck driver is insane. We don't need the truck driver. We don't need him at all.
Awful. The recurring hornball truck driver.
But he just sucks so bad. He's such a fucking clown. When they pull him over and speechify to him, I was like, he looks like the Six Flags guy with the bald cap and the giant. He's like, hey, and you're like, what the fuck? Is this really a character in this movie? Was this dropped in here from like a low budget horror movie or something?
It was written for him.
Oh my God. It was so fucking bad. I was just like, he's the worst character I've seen almost ever. And he's just like, they blow up his car. He's like, yeah, bitches! Ah, bitches from hell! Oh my goodness! Ah. He'd be like, oh my God, I'm gonna die!
This would be ripe for a reboot.
Yeah, totally,
in this day and age,
I thought the same
Thelma
thing.
And Louise. Now, they didn't have any kids, but picture this. It's, someone nowadays reads this story about, oh shit, did you hear about these two women who they've been cross country and raised hell and ended up driving off in the Grand Canyon?
Yeah.
And then that inspires them to then do a Boondock Saints-esque road trip venge fest. Just killing dickheads throughout the entire country. I would fucking watch that movie.
I would like them to redo the same story, honestly, with modern sensibilities. Your idea is also good. I will say that is interesting. If I rebooted this, I would love to see more nuance with the male characters because they can still be awful and problematic without being fucking ridiculous Looney Tune characters.
It's 2025. We can do misogyny so much better.
I know.
Yes, we can do that.
She can still feel constrained and not herself and want to run away from someone who isn't that obviously bad. You can rust in a relationship and need to get out of it without having the guy be a fucking buffoonish asshole. That's more interesting to me.
I think in 91,
I was just going to say that.
There weren't that many movies like this. This was like this is like first wave. This is like they're
totally agree.
Less room for nuance to make the case that these women need out.
Totally agree.
So you need that bash.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Like, do you need to take it so far over the top to make people make it register to people? I feel like if you make that today, you could be far more nuanced and people would be receptive to that. But 90, whatever, they're like, what? Like, you have to sort of make it very obvious. I'm not like that.
Yeah, it's like, how do you get someone's husband or boyfriend or just a random guy to go see Thelma and Louise? Like, make archetypes that make them feel more comfortable. Like, oh, I see. I don't recognize myself in this movie as a bad male, so therefore I can accept these bad males and like the movie still. So I get what you mean. That makes sense.
I see myself as more of a Brad Pitt sexy type. Oh, sorry, did I do that to you?
Sorry, that calls that. You said earlier you don't like Brad Pitt in this, or you didn't think he was that good. I actually do think
it wasn't that. I know he was sort of discovered in this movie, and I was like trying to, some people are discovered because like great actors, and you're like, oh shit, that was an amazing performance. Like that's what they're, but it's like, I asked Jen this, I was like, oh, but I think it was more of like, who's that hunk of beef fucking guy? Yep. Like, it's Brad Pitt, so it wasn't like his acting chops. I guess it was the whole, like, you take your shirt off fucking speech. I don't know.
They were trying to bring like to a female audience in there and they've got the revenge story, but also the like.
No, that's what it was. It was just like, okay, did his star take off because his acting in this, or was it just like eye candy thing?
He's charismatic, and I didn't remember how big his part was in this. Like, I remembered the speech with the hairdryer where he's like does his like routine about how he robs stores. That's a memorable scene. Putting that in your reel as an actor would get you cast in a lot of stuff. And I guess George Clooney auditioned for this 5 times for that character for JD.
Shit, really?
5 fucking times. And it got down to George Clooney and Brad Pitt. And Gina Davis picked Brad Pitt. She was like, this guy, obviously, and the day that this movie, the day they wrapped shooting, I think, she got divorced from Jeff Goldblum. And people in the know were like, yeah, they had a torrid affair during the filming of this
really?
movie. So Gina Davis's lust for
she
Brad
cheated
Pitt
on Brundlefly?
Launched Brad Pitt's career. Yeah, Brundlefly.
Yeah, I'm not seeing
Brundlefly ate shit on this one.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. That's disgusting.
I'd say this. I don't say this very often. One of the few movies I probably would rewatch because I feel like, not that I miss stuff, but I think it's worth kind of rewatching in a way. I'd be curious to kind of like understand a little bit more around like the reverberations and like the blowback. Or I think it was both, like you said, a critical and a commercial success. But I know there were lots of conversations that had like that kind of rippled off of
I'm
this.
sure like Gingrich was like fucking
really
upset by this.
This made people mad.
Like why?
And
that's what I want to like.
It made establishment men mad for sure.
Well, I mean, I understand why. But I mean,
it's a man-hating movie. It's like it just hates shitty men.
I think they do a very good job of trying to portray the fact that you're damned if you do kind of thing. Like you're at a disadvantage no matter what, right? Woman gets raped. You know, we call the cops. Our lives are ruined. Doesn't matter anyways, because no one believes us, or we become outlaws and run for it, and our lives are ruined anyways. So it's like, might as well have fun and try to get away with it. I mean, because you're fucked either way.
Gina Davis has that little speech before they finish the very end of the movie where she's like, I can't go back. Something has changed in me.
She says she has an awakening.
I can't go back. And she's like, I know. And what pulls that whole fish tank thing back into this for me is when Brad Pitt stole their money. Louise is in the car. Thelma goes in to rob a store, and she looks into that window with the two old ladies in the window, and she's like, oh, fuck.
That's my future.
This is my future, and I'm on the other side of the fish tank now. Like, I broke out of this thing, and I'm looking back at the fish tank that these women are trapped behind this glass, you know, and I'm seeing the fish tank from the outside, and she's like, I can't fucking do that again. I can't go back. So like when Thelma says that to her later, she's like, I know.
One scene I really liked was when they're going through Arizona and like Louise pulls over when Thelma's sleeping and she kind of wanders off into the brush and is kind of just like staring at the beauty. And my head is like, it's kind of like an acceptance of saying goodbye in a way, like this is the end in a weird way. And then she approaches her and it's like, oh, what are you doing? She's like, nothing. And they just turn back. But it's kind of this like, you know, hey, this world is really beautiful, but it's also really shitty. And this like, maybe this is the end.
It seemed like almost a spiritual moment in a secular way, you know, like, wow, look at this whole fucking world that I've always been a part of, but haven't realized that I've been a part of because I was in this really small world.
Oh yeah, that's
that
true.
Never changes.
Gotta get out of that hometown.
Yeah.
Look at some stars.
You're part of the whole world your entire life, just not that many people really know it or act like it. I love that scene too. And the lighting was really cool and like,
finally, Ridley Scott got the lighting right.
Yeah, and it was quiet and neat, and it didn't have exposition in it. It was just a neat, cool, quiet moment. All right, well, do any final thoughts before we grade this? Anyone want to say any extra stuff?
As always, Greg, I think you bring good picks.
So what's the grading scale?
That's the grading scale. I guess we'll go from Daryl is an F. No. The truck driver is an F. And then I guess Harvey Keitel's state trooper would be an A because he's probably the best male in the movie.
I'll go first. I think it's somewhere in between there. It's a Michael Madsen. It's Jimmy. Jimmy. Approaching Keitel. Yeah, I think as like a letter grade, I feel like it's like a B+. It's definitely a cultural touchstone.
Yeah.
Obviously, the ending is famous when it comes to like film. I was pleasantly surprised by how deep it really was and how interesting the characters of Thelma and Louise are. I was a little disappointed in how uninteresting a lot of the other characters are.
Right.
But Thelma and Louise, like those two characters, definitely they carry it. You want to root for them. You are fed up by the system, the society that they inhabit, which coincidentally is our society and our system.
It still exists to an extent.
Big coincidence.
Like this.
So it's I came away from it not wanting to pick away too much at it because I feel like it deserves a little bit more than that, but also there are like things that just like really kind of grated against me that were all like from a directorial standpoint and just weird. When they take a selfie with a Polaroid and they pause the film to imitate a snapshot, that's stupid. Like I just like, it's a dumb effect. Like when someone's taking a picture and then you also like just pause the screen real quick to like tell the audience this was a photograph that just happened. Okay. Like that's bullshit. You don't need to do that. Right. Come on, just have them take a picture. So the little things like that, it was just like against me. Okay. But aside, those things aside, it was really trying to do something interesting as a film, and it succeeded on most of the counts. And so I got to give it a B+. I definitely watch it again. I'm grateful to have seen it. I don't know why I didn't see it back in the day, but I just didn't.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't see something.
Yeah.
No real
Thanks,
reason.
Greg.
No problem. T-Bird, aka Brian, what is your grade?
He stole my grade. I was going to give it a B+.
B+. There you go.
Coolest thing about this movie is the T-Bird in it. No, I'm just kidding. I like your car. Great car choice. No, I think this is a sweet spot for me. 90s, early 90s, mid, whatever. That period where, they were making movies that were 3 hours long. Like, even like the Titanics of the world or Gladiator. And I love when movies piss people off. That always makes me happy. So like ruffle feathers of idiots.
Yeah, totally. And then you wonder why, right? Like, why did it piss everyone off?
Well, this is stupid. Even think it's like the kiss at the end. Like, what was that? So they're gay at the end? It's like, no, like they're best friends and they love each other and they're about to go fucking die. Like, it makes total sense. I mean, I think it's a B+. I hesitate to give it an A. I think it's a little. I think he could have shortened it a little bit.
Go through Texas.
Yeah, I guess you got to go through Texas. But I appreciated I think they cast it really well with the two leads. I feel like maybe Susan Sarandon just has this about her. Like we talked about this in Bull Durham. It's like she's so good in something that's like that you don't see anybody else doing this. So. That's kind of how I feel about this. I think they had a lot of good messages in it. I think it'd be curious. Like I would have loved a female opinion that was sort of around that time.
Well, unfortunately, there weren't any females back then that had opinions.
This invented opinions for women.
Daryl pops in. Hey,
the first time.
I've studied history, and it's conclusive.
Get your butt back here.
I'll be back tomorrow. Nope, you will be back today. I've said my piece.
B+ for Brian.
B+.
B+ for Brian. Yeah, I hesitated between a B+ and A-. The central performances from Susan Sarandon and Gina Davis are an A+. They're both great. They're so fucking great in this. I don't think we talked about them being really good, but like they're great together. They're great on their own. They're great with their scene partners that aren't each other. The transformation of Gina Davis's character, from this very fidgety, nervous housewife to like an outlaw, super fun to watch. She pulls it off perfectly. And Susan Sarandon is just so good. Funny sometimes and like absolutely fierce other times, like just laser eyes. And just has complicated relationships with her guy and everything. Like they give her so much to do and she does so much with it. Most of the secondary characters are good. The husband Daryl is too big. Even though he's funny, it detracts from my enjoyment of the movie a little bit. I don't mind Harvey Keitel having no obvious motivation to help them. I like him in there. I think he's like an anchor for the male side of the story, where not every man is a piece of shit in this movie. Michael Madsen does a good job. They give him some nuanced stuff. He gets to be kind of an asshole, kind of okay. This truck driver, man. Oh,
that's
what
stops it from being an A as the truck driver.
It really does. It sucks so bad.
Jarring, yeah.
And I don't like at the very end, after the car drives off the cliff, I also don't like that they had the like vignettes from the movie while the credits are rolling, where it's like gals on the road, gals having fun, that kind of for me undercuts
in memoriam
a little bit. Just like, yeah, exactly. Like totally. Yeah. That's what it plays like.
Pancake
like,
by truck truck.
I know. Like, they had this huge, basically political statement of them jumping off the cliff and into the void. And then they were like, remember them gals? They was okay, wasn't they? They's fun.
Let's remember the good times.
Yeah, that kind of undercuts it for me a little bit. But there's also, it's got plenty to say without overstating it. I think it does a good job of like elevating the discussion about how we treat women in America and in the greater world. It's a pretty important movie, and it led to a lot of future work that kind of broke open what women were allowed to do in movies. So I think I would give it an A- for that. The central performances and the impact on the rest of pop culture in America and politics as well. But I'll give it an A-. All right. So yeah, that's this one. What do we got next week or next time? It's a Brian pick.
Brian pick. I'm between two. Would you like something more modern or something?
I didn't know if this is democracy
or older.
I mean, what are they? Can you just say what they are and I'll say, oh, I don't want that one?
So yeah, the two I'm between is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton's book from 1983, or the more musical Whiplash, which is 10 years old, but I think the performance from J.K. Simmons is worth rewatching in this.
I'm interested in seeing The Outsiders because of how many famous people are in there and how often it has been referenced in my life by other people, and they're always like, you haven't seen The fucking Outsiders?
That Tom Cruise,
I thought that was a requirement.
Rob Lowe, Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell, Ralph Macchio, Matt Dillon, Emilio Estevez. It's like
that movie is like, it has so many references like, oh yeah, Pony Boy and stuff.
Stay
like,
Gold.
Is that C. Thomas Howell's role? Is it Pony Boy? That's what I thought. Yeah.
It was before Soul Man.
Is that before Soul Man killed his career? I really think
everybody really else in this movie skyrocketed. He's like, I want to do Soul Man. Imagine his agent pitching that to him. Hear me out.
Hear me out. You're in blackface the whole movie, and you're a white guy who steals a scholarship from a qualified African American applicant for Harvard.
Think this is going to be good for my career?
Still here.
Oh yeah,
still here.
I was always more of a Pussy Riot guy.
I've heard that about you.
Here.